A new series. After getting an initial introduction to Jainism through Namokar Mantra, Manglik, Logatam, and Pavajami Sutras. So through the four sutras, we created a background where life of Mahavir can be a great inspiration for us. As he practiced and preached divinity that he had experienced in his heart. And that divinity can be a guiding light, like a beacon for us that can guide in a proper direction. So through those four sutras, there is an introduction to the Jainism. And now follows the great lectures on Jainism itself, which is one of a very good religion, and we can put it in a daily life, very practical religion also. It removes a lot of laziness. It requires you to be more active, and you have to do shram. Shram is, that's why we call Shravaks. And all those efforts are needed. Just, fantasizing that God is going to remove my sufferings, God is going to take me out of this darkness to lightness, and all these things, just wishful thinking is not going to take you anywhere. You have to make efforts. And these are not physical efforts, but actually spiritual efforts. All these efforts gonna take you into the lab that Mahavir used. See, there is a difference between science and spirituality, and yet spirituality is also a science. In scientific field, scientists do the experiments. They have the labs, they have the experiment, they can write down all the data, they can prove it to you. And at that point, there is no denying. It is there, it is there. But once a scientist discovers something, then everybody can understand. Even a 5-year-old kid now can say that, okay, there is a gravity. But before the gravity was discovered, people had no idea what a gravity is, and yet it was there. The same way, God is there, but we have to do experiment ourselves to find out whether he's there or not. The problem is, the lab of Mahavir is within us. Unless we go there and do the experiment ourselves, we're not going to have a proof. We have to take his word for it, but we don't want to do that. Mahavir says, don't even think about it, to take somebody else's words for it. And that was the main thing he was fighting for, because heavens and hells were, all there were projections set up in the people's minds, and people were being really misguided. So Mahavir says, remove all this nonsense and just concentrate on your own psyche and find out where your problems are. What are the causes of sufferings? And all these things, ultimately, I will guide you through the whole channels, but you will be your own guiding light. So we're going to start with a new sutra on which we probably will be talking for a whole year, pretty much, because it's so detailed. It was from the Dasavaikalak Sutra. It was written in 6th century BC. And the sutra says, Dhammo Mangala Mukhitam, Ahimsa Sanjamo Tavo, Devavithan Namasanti Jas Dhamme Sayamano. All that means is, Dharma is the most auspicious in the world. And which Dharma? Ahimsa, Sanyam, and Tap. And one whose mind is always involved in this Dharma, even the gods will bow down to them. This is the full meaning of the mantra. So we'll start discussing further into the details. So before we go into the details of the sutras, Mahavir says Dharma is the most auspicious in the world. But what is Dharma? What is Adharma? What is Mangal and what is Amangal? We have to have some definitions of this. Dharma is something which he has reached to that state, but we have not. But we do know Adharma. Adharma we do. We live in Adharma. We are suffering from Adharma. We have the sufferings, and all these sufferings adding up becomes the total Adharma. But so that is very familiar with us. Dharma is not. And Mahavir says never fantasize on anything. Don't even fantasize on Dharma either. But analyze what is your that you're doing, and is it giving you the sufferings of life? And if you're aware of your own sufferings, then you will find the way to reach dharma. So let us find out what is the definition of dharma as per Mahavir. Mahavir says that whatever is your basic nature, whatever you are made up of, and whatever you are, is your dharma. That means any deviation from what you are not, from whatever you are, if you deviate even 1 degree to the right, to the left, to the forward or the backward, is adharma. Being in a state that you are in is your dharma. And any deviation from that dharma becomes adharma, according to the definition of Mahavir. Whatever happiness you see in the world is a result of dharma. Whatever freedom, whatever joy exists in the world is because of the dharma. And any way or anywhere you see suffering, directly or indirectly, it is either lack of dharma or because of presence of adharma. So once we realize this definition, we can move on and build up on it. So you have to realize that dharma is something that is given to you. You don't even have to try to achieve dharma, because dharma is your basic nature. If a fire decides to become a cold fire, if a fire wants to hang out in a party and wants to become cool, cannot. The nature of the fire is heat. It just cannot change it. The water nature is to cool you down. Moon is supposed to be cool. Sun is supposed to be hot. These are all creations of consciousness, and everything, everybody is assigned with their own dharmas. All we have to do is find out. We have to discover your own dharma, and you have discovered the life. You have discovered the consciousness. So our efforts is not so much to find dharma or look for dharma. Our purpose in this world is to find out what is adharma, find out the root causes of adharma, why we have suffering, and what can we do to reach to our own nature, which is given to us. At the same time, we realize that whatever is not given to us, no matter how much you try, it can never become yours. You may work hard for it, spend hours and hours, days and months, and at the end of that, whatever you get, you may give you an impression that it is yours for time being, but ultimately it will never be yours. It will always slip away from you. If you can have a broader vision in life from your own experiences, you realize that whatever I ran after, whatever I cheated people for, whatever I did a lot of dishonest things, whatever deviations from my dharma I did, I broke away from my family and I killed myself to achieve the things that I was dreaming of achieving. Ultimately, it loses its value, and then it starts slipping away from me. Could that be something that I can rely on for happiness forever? If that's the case, then you have realized and you have started waking up. So whatever is not yours and you try to get, you're going against the laws of consciousness. Consciousness has divided itself into everybody assigned to their own nature. And whatever your nature is, if you are not happy with it, and the deviation starts from it to achieve something that is not yours, unhappiness follows. And then we question, why am I so unhappy? But if we can understand the root cause of all these things, we can understand and take a journey towards dharma. So whatever you came into this world with was something that was assigned to you already. The life does not have to give you that, the life that we call life, because we already had it even before we came to the life with. And death is never going to take it away from you, because that's something that you always going to take it with you. Our effort should be on something that is ours, or rather that is you, rather than something that is not yours and never will be yours. And all our life we are wasting on the things which will never be ours. And yet we keep on wasting our whole life. And when we are surrounded by the people who are doing the same thing, we are joining a crowd, basically. When we start thinking independently, we can rise above the crowd. And that's what Mahavir did. So even if whatever I call mine, it will start losing its appeal. The body can start getting old. Hair starts going. Teeth can go. You can die. Your possessions can disappear. But there is one thing that will never disappear. Something that has observed all these changes. And that element that is observing that you were 5-year-old, 10-year-old, 15-year-old, 25-year-old, you had earned your first dollar, or the last dollar that you have observed, the number of zeros that you added in your bank account, the cars that you drove, all these things were being observed. If you remove your attention from all this for a span of for some time, you realize that there is an element, there is a level of, there is an element of consistency that is present through all these experiences. All these experiences came, they lasted for a short time, and they disappeared. They came from something unknown, and they are going into something unknown. Your whole life is coming from unknown. You enjoying your life, and it will disappear into unknown, but you will exist. You as an experiencer, as a sakshi, as an observer, you're going to be persisting throughout. So whatever you came with is all you're going to take away with it. So, and once you realize this, the experiences that you have that either created for you or you're trying to create yourself, and all the efforts you're trying to generate more and more happiness because your being itself is not enough for you, you will realize the futility of all these actions. So once that awareness starts building up, your journey to the soul starts. We always think the pleasure is somewhere else. And for that, our eyes are always on the other. We live for others. We breathe for others. We die even for others. We never live for a single moment for ourselves. From the time we wake up in the morning till we go to bed at night, we always think of others. How the society looks at me. What do I look like? Am I behaving the way everybody else is? Am I fitting into the crowd? Why do I have to be different than the crowd? The way you dress, the way you style your hair, the way you color your hair, or whatever. Every single second we're thinking of the other. And that captures your mind 100% of the time. Even in the dreams, we are thinking of others, as if the others is all we know. In fact, our own existence is dependent on others. All of a sudden, if everything disappears, we won't even know what to do. We never spend time with ourselves. We never even try to know ourselves. Right, exactly. So we run. So there was a French philosopher, Jean-Paul Sartre. Sartre said, the other is hell. He did write a book, The Other is Hell. Literally, we're creating a hell for ourselves, because all the things which seems futile after our discussions, and yet we are compelled, literally we are mesmerized by the crowd, by the society, by the people, whatever, all those ideas coming and shooting at us, we are absorbing as if like we are a garbage can. that anyone can throw in whatever. Under the influence of those external ideas, external beliefs, external things, it modifies our behavior. Just because a 16-year-old girl sells such and such ice cream or yogurt, we say, okay, we have to have it. Why? We never think. We never think. If somebody comes and tells us that you can die and do a jihad, we kill. And we die too. And yet we never ask why. So all this awareness has to rise within us that others is a hell. So Sartre did say that other is a hell. But the question is, if you really compare with Mahavir's statement that dharma is mangal, so you can say that opposite is also true, that adharma is amangal. But Mahavir doesn't say that. But you can make a corollary from that if self is heaven, he knew that self is divine, self is mangal, self is the most free thing in the world, in the universe. So compared to that, you can correlate that Mahavir would agree with Sartre's statements that other is hell. But there is a subtle difference. Mahavir doesn't go into discussion of hell. But compared to what he found within, which was heaven, compared to that, going to others is a hell. Because any deviation from your divinity becomes undivine. And you get sucked into the material forces, and that's where the rat race starts of chasing and choosing. Either it could be the people, could be the objects, could be the situations, just running and running and running, and that is hell, according to Mahavir. But Sartre's definition somehow does not correlate well with Mahavir, so we can go into the details. Why does Sartre say that the other is hell? Because he analyzed whole life that we want pleasures from outside, and when we don't get that pleasure, the world becomes hell. So our expectations that pleasure has to come from the world leads us to suffering. So it's kind of lack of pleasure makes us say that the other is hell. So we live for others, we thinking we'll find happiness in others. The fact that we synchronize with the crowd, that we belong with everybody's thinking. If everybody is bowing down, I also bow down. I'll be fine and I'll be accepted as a part of whatever religion you believe or whatever organization that you believe, whatever gang you believe in. It's the others.